Hi, welcome to Doodlecast. I'm your host Jimmy, and today we've got Natasha Barlow with us today to talk about Batman vs. Superman and its mixed reviews. So, Natasha, what did you think of this movie?
Well, I definitely don't think it was the 31% that Rotten Tomatoes gave it. I don't think it was that bad. There were times that were really good, and times that also were not so great. I mean, I can only speak for myself on that. You?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the major problem with this movie is its pacing, and that's a director problem. There are some moments that are really nice, and some moments that it feels out of character for these heroes. But overall, it's not the worst superhero movie in the world, and it's definitely not the best, though.
Right.
So we're gonna go into kind of the details why. Why don't we just break it down between the three main characters at the moment? Let's just talk a little Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman.
The Trinity!
Yep. Let's start with Wonder Woman right now.
Okay. Well, first of all, real big fan of Wonder Woman. Basically, like, when she emerged herself in the film as Wonder Woman, it was this fantastic feel-good moment. Everyone in the theater just started cheering, and it was a great moment. I do think it was interesting kind of how they did her character, though, and just how they kind of brought that, kind of like weave that into the plot there.
Which, spoilers a little bit. There's going to be a lot of spoilers in this podcast. Let's just be honest.
We should probably have said that earlier.
There are spoilers in this podcast.
Whoops.
So, they kind of had her as almost an espionage beginning, where if you didn't know Gal Gadot or Gal Gadot was Wonder Woman, you wouldn't have known her importance or really even her character's name from the very beginning.
Right.
I think it was maybe briefly said at one point, but...
Right, yeah.
But overall, she meets up with a Bruce Wayne during a party or something. Yeah, a party.
Yeah, it was during Lex's gathering thing.
Yes, for the libraries. Because Bruce already made his statement about, I like libraries and books.
Right.
That's how we kind of get introduced to her character, but...
You're honestly my first thought when I saw her as that espionage character. Like, I obviously, like, going into it, I did not know that was going to be Wonder Woman. Like, I knew she was going to be involved in the movie, I just didn't know to what extent. When I saw her character initially at Lex's party and interacting with Bruce, like, I honestly thought she was the bad guy. Or affiliated with Lex and the bad guys. So it was definitely a nice shock factor when, you see the 1918 picture and it's, bam, it's Wonder Woman. So...
And I think it's a cello that Hans Zimmer, that was her theme. And
right.
that just starts wailing. And a lot of people thought it was a guitar on the internet. I saw a review with Hans Zimmer and his style of music.
Okay, well that's your general opinion of Hans Zimmer anyway. Let's be honest. But no, I definitely think Wonder Woman's theme was the most memorable for me anyway. But I think that's because it was so, like, powerful and how they brought her into that as her character. I guess kind of going off of Wonder Woman, I thought that was interesting how she only had interacted with Bruce Wayne. She'd never interacted with Clark Kent or, Superman himself until the Trinity essentially comes together. So I thought that was a little abnormal with her character because she is so against men and she's very, radical feminist and, she is very hesitant to work with men, at least based on like what I've seen in like the, Justice League animated series and just what I know of her character. The progression that she had with Bruce Wayne seemed to sort of make sense, but the fact that she was so willing to just be like, yeah, Clark Kent, like, let's all work together, let's get this bad guy. Like, it just seemed very, very sudden.
Yeah, no, I would agree. Overall, her placement in the movie is extremely haphazard and just thrown in there every so often. Just to remind you, Wonder Woman exists, guys. You're gonna enjoy her. And granted, I did enjoy her. I'm very much looking forward to the main Wonder Woman movie where she's featured. I'm extremely excited for that, and
Awesome.
I've been excited for that for years.
Yeah. I mean,
Since
it's been a
announced.
long time coming.
Yeah, and Gal Gadot does an excellent job. Okay, do we want to do Batman or Superman?
Let's do Superman.
Okay, let's do Superman.
Let's go on Superman. So what's your take on Superman?
Well, Superman is heavily a combination of kind of Christian mythology meets Greek mythology in this movie, and all the characters that seem to be against Superman use these allegories about God, and it's attempting to kind of portray Superman because he's this superpower, superhuman. They are creating this metaphor for him to be God, which is used in the comics all the time. And they do that with imagery, they do that with plot points, and I'm fine with that. And I enjoy kind of that thought process of comparing him to that thing, because he is so overpowered, and it creates this fear among the humans in his life. Lex, and in this movie Batman as well.
Well, especially because it's a sequel to like The Man of Steel, where he is portrayed as like just basically just destroying the city completely to shreds.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes sense in how that is being portrayed.
And that's the very beginning of this movie. This movie shows the Battle of Metropolis again from a different perspective, from Bruce Wayne's perspective.
I actually really like that.
Yeah, I agree. That actually brought me into the movie. When I first saw that, I was like, you know, this movie's gonna be fine, and the critics are wrong. And then other things happen.
I mean, other things happen. but I think it was really important that they did that they had the Battle of Metropolis from Bruce Wayne's point of view, because it gave that sense of connection for why he is so angry at Superman. It gives that sense of that him needing justice, you know, just like with, you know, Batman with his parents and all that, but that's a whole other thing.
Most moments Superman exists, there is a savior Christian moment, or Lex is talking about the Greek gods a lot. There's a moment where right before the final battle of the movie, Superman is climbing up Mount Everest and he meets his father, and it feels very much like Jesus on the mountain talking to God right before he's crucified.
Right.
Which is heavy symbolism for what comes next.
Oh yeah.
And I felt like there were too many for me. Mm-hmm. Like, I got that we're comparing Superman to Jesus, we're comparing Superman to God. He's part of that. And I understood that. I didn't need Lex reminding me every time he was on screen, and Bruce Wayne every time Bruce was talking about Superman, kind of reminding me that. I thought that the imagery that they used, and when Superman dies, the imagery they used, it's all very Christ-like, reminding me of religious paintings and religious imagery that's very iconic. They could have said it once or twice from each character, but overall, I think it was a little too heavy-handed.
Yeah. I think it was, like, emphasized a little bit too much. Like, I think if they'd scaled that down just a wee bit, I think it would have been more impactful. Because I think it was reminded, a little bit too much, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. So, what are your thoughts on Superman?
I mean, I pretty much agree with a lot of your points. I think... Because what I see, because I've never read the comics, really. I know most of what I see through... Justice League animated series and the movies and just, that general medium. But, I've always seen Superman as, like, the Boy Scout, like, the, cliche American icon, like. But it's one of these things where, in this movie, it kind of toes that line of being the good guy, but also wreaking havoc. Okay. Especially in his interactions.
Collateral damage.
Yeah, and especially in his interactions with Batman, it's very threatening. I mean, obviously, like, throughout the movie, you kind of get that sense that both of them hate each other for rather legitimate, like, kind of legitimate reasons. Like, it makes sense why they hate each other and kind of how that develops. But in terms of Superman being the Boy Scout, like, the good, morally sound individual,
all-American hero.
Yeah,
he's not that.
Right. Especially because, you see him killing people now and then, you see him threatening Batman, which Superman threatening bad guys and, trying to have them be good and trying to see the ways that they're wrong, and But in his interactions with Batman, it's pretty hostile and aggressive, and it just doesn't. It seems a little off for his character.
Yeah. Yep. Henry Cavill, I think he does a very good job of bringing this sense of power to the character. I do want to say he does a good job. He's sometimes scripted to do things out of what Superman's character is, but I think overall he, as an actor, really portrays what the information he's given, and the care towards the character is right. It's just the themes that are promoted.
Yeah, and I think honestly all three of the Trinity characters did a really phenomenal job with portraying their character. I think they did a great job with all of that.
Yep. So let's get to Batman.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
I remember when we came back from seeing the movie, you know, because we got out of the movie and Jimmy's like, oh, like that was pretty good. Yeah, that was great. And then we get home, and the first thing I see when I walk through the door is just Jimmy having this face, and just, if you can picture the sad face and the "Hello Darkness, my old friend" song just kind of playing in the background, that's kind of what the image I was getting when. And just him saying, I actually hated it. I don't know how I feel. So there's that. Especially coming from an avid Batman fan, it was interesting to watch the rage fest unfold.
It was rough. It was very rough.
But I do think Ben Affleck did a really great job with that character, though. Like, I think circumstances were off, but I think him as the character was pretty good.
Yeah, I'm wholly for that. I think his Bruce Wayne is the best Bruce Wayne, in my opinion. It reminds me almost of Kevin Conroy's Bruce Wayne in the animated series.
Definitely.
He kind of acts that way. He's aloof, but also very serious and mopey when he's alone or when he's with Alfred. But he's kind of dorky or almost dumb when he's in public in some circumstances, especially when he's at parties and in the public. Like, when people are looking at him, he'll act stupid, kind of like.
Yeah, whereas, like, I feel like the Bruce Wayne I know is kind of, you know, he holds himself to that sophisticated, like, mannerisms when he's in public, and being that billionaire face and things like that.
Yeah, just kind of being a stereotypical.
Yeah.
Way too much money, rich boy.
Yeah. Which, I mean, there are certainly moments where he does a really good job with that Bruce Wayne, but there's other Bruce Wayne moments where, you know, it is kind of like the silly, like, oh,
yeah.
I don't know.
I guess we should talk about the killing.
Yeah.
There's
minor details.
There's a lot of Batman shoots people or blows people up.
Or runs them over.
Or
flips a car and then drops on top of them.
Yeah, tows a car with dead people in it and then flips that car onto another car of dead people.
It's a little gory. Well, not gory, but it's a little morbid when you think about it.
Yeah, I mean...
Because it goes against his character.
Yeah, it goes against what Batman kind of stands for, and part of me thinks that's the route they wanted to take, because in some Batman, Superman introduction stories, they'll have Batman being darker than normal. They'll have...
Like Frank Miller's Batman.
Well, not even that necessarily. I mean, it definitely is a darker Batman in Frank Miller's Batman, but what I'm trying to say is, before Batman ever meets Superman at any point, their first introduction, Batman's a little more brutal for one reason or another. Maybe something bad has happened to him recently, but he typically doesn't have a Robin with him. He's at a low point typically when some stories have him meet, and that's definitely what they did.
He is at a low point in this movie. I mean, and you see that from the introduction when Metropolis is being blown to hell, pretty much. Like,
yeah,
you see that happening. You see him having in that low moment.
Yeah, and in the Batcave, we get a few conversations with Alfred where he's like, the good guys always turn bad, and the few who don't die. And there's some really depressing quotes that we have from Bruce Wayne, but it still feels weird having him kill a bunch of these mercenaries for the most part. They're just bad guys paid to be bad guys, not even necessarily like horrible people. And then he's branding people, and I'm okay with the branding. That was
That was an interesting twist on it.
That was an interesting twist, and they kind of show how Superman's meeting has affected him at the end of the movie by having him fake a branding.
Yeah.
And that was nice, and I would have appreciated if it had just been branding to no branding, and that kind of showed the arc of him being a little kinder rather than killing people.
Right.
And he continues to kill people to the very end of the movie. To save people, he kills people, and it just feels all muddled.
Yeah. It's definitely a different Batman.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's certainly interesting to watch. But it's very different, and it's not quite the Batman I think that people were expecting, or at least so I think.
Or wanted.
Yeah.
We didn't want that. We never wanted Batman to kill, and that would give.
You didn't want Batman to kill. I mean.
Nobody wants Batman to kill.
I mean, I don't want Batman to kill, but.
Nobody.
You can't be speaking for everybody.
Nobody. That's kind of like, that's the reason why Batman would have had moral ground over Superman.
Yeah, and like you and I were having a debate like when we got when we got out of the movie, where it's like, yeah, Batman doesn't want, he wouldn't pull a trigger on a gun, but when I brought up the point of, well, he's in his Batmobile shooting off cannons at people. That's a similar analogy to that.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, his hand physically isn't on a gun, but at the same time, he's still shooting people up, so.
And he does shoot a gun by the end. And in his dream sequence, he shoots guns and kills people.
Yeah, I wasn't too fond of the dream sequences. That seemed a little unnecessary.
All of the dream sequences, barring the one where Superman's on the mountaintop, because I'm not sure if that's a dream or not, like that's a hallucination kind of thing, but that one was okay for me. But all of the dream sequences could have been cut, and that would have been 20 minutes of the movie probably.
Yeah. There's a lot of very odd random dreams. I mean, and granted, dreams are very odd in itself, but in the context of this movie, it didn't necessarily
help. Why was Flash in a dream sequence? Future Flash was in a dream sequence, warping through the time barrier.
Oh, I missed that one. Whoops.
When Bruce, he wakes up from his Superman is communist leader.
Yes.
Superman.
Okay.
And he wakes up and he sees the guy saying, it's Lois in the dream. You gotta watch.
Oh, I remember
Lois.
that. Okay. No,
yeah.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah, that was Flash.
Okay.
And you're just like, why? And then he wakes up again, and I'm just like, ah!
Inception!
Yeah. So that was that.
Right.
Ben Affleck, we want to say, did a great job with what he could.
Oh, yeah.
And I really felt bad for when I saw the sad Affleck video.
Oh, that was just heartbreaking.
That
the poor
hurt.
guy. It was just so sad.
Sad Affleck will be in the description below if you haven't seen it. It is a moment, and it's him really dealing with criticism of this movie. We've talked about the three main good guys.
Can I just take a hot second to talk about how I loved Alfred?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I just loved how sassy he was. He had some great one-liners in this movie.
Jeremy Irons did a really good job, I think. He's right up there with Michael Caine. I don't know if you like this Alfred or...
I mean, I like both Alfreds. At least from the Dark Knight series versus this one. I like both Alfreds, honestly, but I just think this movie just had some great... To me, I feel like Alfred is just full of great one-liners and fun job with it.
But I think all of the actors really put their all into this movie, whether you like their performances or not.
Oh, yeah.
It's not hammed, or with a lot of superhero movies, you see a lot of ham.
They're very genuine.
Yeah, they care about these roles. They want to succeed, and that's an admirable trait in a superhero movie when it's not always. I mean, recently it's much more accepted, but in the past it hasn't really been a role that a lot of people looked to necessarily do.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that I like about just movies in general, is if you can genuinely see the passion that these actors bring to the movie. And I feel like in this movie that, I definitely feel like I could see that.
Let's talk about Lex.
Okay.
And let's talk about how you see that role. What did you call it exactly? Because you said it best, I think.
The way that I saw this Lex, it was a combination of the original Lex Luthor, at least that I know of. Still the bad guy, but very sophisticated, very serious. Which not to say that that this Alexander Luthor was not sophisticated, but he seemed kind of like having mixtures with the Joker. Like it seemed like a Joker Lex, throwing them together and having a hybrid of the two of them. That's just like the mannerisms specifically just really seemed to come across with this Lex. Like I thought it was a very different take on Lex, and I kind of liked it, but at the same time it just seemed very Joker-esque, almost a little childish too at times.
Well, yeah, Lex was definitely the youngest of the characters in this movie, but it is weird seeing he's very choppy with his speech. He's repetitive almost a little bit with words and things like that. Like he has a stutter.
But I think that also is important to show that there's a weakness there.
But it wasn't really shown as a weakness per se. It was shown as more of just that was an addition to his mannerism. When you typically think Lex, you think of
the businessman.
The businessman who can sell you things. I mean, he becomes president of the United States in a comic.
That's true.
For a very long time.
He always is running for president in all the animated series, I feel like.
Yeah, exactly. And you wouldn't elect this guy as a president. You wouldn't. Like, you couldn't see... Well, you couldn't see him as someone who could give speeches and people would...
Right. This Lex is not a speech...
He's not a presenter.
Yes, that's a good
He has no presentation, and they even make fun of that in his speech.
Right.
At his introduction.
Yeah,
they make fun of him being he feels very much like a Mark Zuckerberg mixed with, like, to me anyway, he feels like Mark Zuckerberg meets Lex meets rich business kid.
Yeah.
And LexCorp was founded by his father in this movie.
Yeah, so I think it's just his way of branching out and being different from his father, and probably trying to break through that image, trying to be his own individual person.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. But people are going to have mixed feelings about Lex.
Absolutely.
No matter what, I think.
Yeah.
Just because he's not your normal Lex. I saw a lot of people were saying this is the first time they were afraid of Lex Luthor in which I think is a good thing to.
I think it's a valid statement
to say, because I don't think most people are afraid of Lex in the comics ever, and that's part of why he can be what he is in the comics, why he's the presidential figure, because people aren't afraid of him.
Right.
He's able to hide it. He's able to hide his malicious.
Yeah, and actually I think that's another really good point now that I think about it. It's like, at least in the animated series, when I see Superman interacting with Lex, Superman's not afraid of him.
No.
Superman is basically like, I know how you work. I know how to deal with you and your shenanigans. Whereas in this movie, you genuinely see the fear that Superman had.
Fear and anger.
Especially when the climax happens at the very end. Superman is just realizing how manipulative. Basically just realizing how much of a threat Lex is and what he's doing.
Yeah. I mean, he threatens.
And you see that
he threatens Martha Kent. And
that's another good point.
The reason Batman and Superman fight is actually because Lex Luthor has manipulated Batman or Bruce Wayne to think that Superman is the one who creates a terror event. Everybody else in the public think it's this guy who actually is the one who carried the bomb.
Yeah.
But Batman's like, no, this is Superman manipulating people based on some letters he received. Batman's like prepared for hunting down Superman, and Superman is forced to go to Batman because Lex Luthor has kidnapped Martha Kent.
Yeah.
And that's where we get to the battle. Now that we're at the battle, let's talk the battle. Okay, so what were your thoughts on Batman versus Superman?
Oh god, that's a loaded question. So many things that could come up from that. I think, where do I even begin? I mean, I think it was interesting how they connected Martha Kent to Martha Wayne. I mean, that's ultimately what is able to bring them together is just the name and the thought of that.
And the thought of mothers.
Yeah.
Just the loving mother figure. Another thing that show Martha Wayne actually getting in front of the gun.
Yeah.
And making sure that Bruce is not hurt.
Yeah.
In a way before she's shot. She tries to stop the gunman just like Thomas Wayne tries to stop the gunman.
Man, if only this came out in like another couple months, it'd be like, Happy Mother's Day.
Oh God, that would be awful.
All about motherly love.
Yeah. Dead mothers. And how much they love their sons who have become vigilantes to save the world. You know, Mother's Day.
But I think the battle itself, it was just a lot going on.
You see, I disagree with that. I thought it was a pretty standard superhero battle.
Yeah, well, I mean, I agree. I mean, it was pretty standard, but it just, I think, with just trying to process the two characters and themselves, just duking it out. They're doing this, they're doing that, and then suddenly, oh, they come together. Let's fight the bad guys. And it just, I don't know. I feel like I feel like I have mixed feelings about it. Again, I think my favorite part in the entire battle, like the award for most badassery, has to go to Wonder Woman. Like, that's just how I feel about it. Like, that was just like the best moment in that whole battle sequence. Just Wonder Woman just busting through, like, hey bitches, I'm here. Yeah. And that was the best moment.
Okay.
And Superman and Batman are just like, thought she was with you.
Yeah, the trailer part. Yep. Yeah.
I thought that was funny. Like, there were some lighthearted moments in there too. I guess, what were your thoughts, especially because I think because also Lois was involved with all of that too. So I don't know.
Kinda. Okay, so
I don't know how I feel about Lois in this movie, honestly.
Lois is fine.
Yeah.
She's nothing special in this movie. She's just an extra character that adds a little bit too much more to the
Superman's
movie.
Always saving. They kept that one to their true colors is Superman always saving Lois.
Yeah.
But anyway, so what were your thoughts on the battle?
Okay, so the battle, you've kind of got this Frank Miller moment where Batman and Superman are about to duke it out in Gotham, in an abandoned part of Gotham specifically. Batman's got his giant metal suit, and it goes how you think it'd go at the beginning, where Superman's definitely holding back 100%. He's just trying to convince Batman, hey, my mom's in trouble, but Batman won't give him the time or place to say, hey, my mom is in trouble.
Right.
Batman and Superman start fighting it out, and what happens, and I think the best decision for this playing field to be even, because Superman destroys Batman 99.999% of the time if they were actually angry at each other, like they kind of are in this movie. Mm-hmm. But what Batman does is he infects Superman with Crane's venom mixed with the kryptonite. I thought that was a really cool choice, and they don't really go into like saying, hey, it's Crane's venom. It's just kind of like this thing for fans to pick out and be like, hey, that's Crane's venom, or his toxins that make you afraid. The venom is Bane's thing, sorry. I'm gonna get yelled at. But Crane's toxin mixed with the kryptonite creates this fear for Superman. It makes Superman afraid and inhibits his abilities because he's been inhaling all this kryptonite. And it's this great moment where Batman goes, this is what fear is. And men can be brave, but you're not a man. And Superman throws a punch and Batman blocks it, and you see the fear in Superman's eyes. And you're like, yes, there's a good reason. And Batman uses this fear toxin at least, or fear, a
couple times.
He uses it a few times during the fight to make sure he can
knock him around a little bit.
Knock him around, because Superman, the minute the toxin wears off, Superman's whipping him around the place and destroying his suit, and Batman struggles to get up from a single punch of Superman every time.
Right.
And they definitely weighed that power difference. Even though Batman could beat him up a little bit, it was because of this fear toxin, and eventually because of this giant kryptonite spear that Batman has, which is it looks really cool.
It does.
I think that was a cool look to it. Like, it could have been so many things, but he just sharpens this kryptonite, uses lasers to do it when he's getting ready, and that's a good moment. But overall, it's an okay fight, and you're really just waiting for it to end because you know there's a bigger threat. And but how it ends is Superman's cowering under Batman, and Batman's got his kryptonite spear over top of him. He's cut Superman. He's about to stab him right through the heart, and Superman goes, "You've got to save Martha." And Batman's like, "Why did you say that name? Why did you say that name?"
All the flashbacks.
And you get some flashbacks of Martha dying and Martha's grave. And Martha Wayne, that is. Lois comes in and says, "Martha's his mom." And
just like a little side voice, just like, "Hey there, I'm here."
Yeah, and you're just like, "Well."
Hi.
But the reaction from Bruce was really good. Like, you see because one of his eyes are ripped. Of the suit is ripped out at this point, so you see that reaction in his eye.
You see like half his face at this point.
Yeah, his pupils contract. You see that shock and that relation of, "That's my mom. That's my mom's name too." And this
little best friend bond moment there.
There's exactly. There's this little moment where there's a connection. Overall, I think we can say that we get Doomsday, blah blah blah.
That happens. No big deal.
It's an ugly Doomsday. Superman dies because it's Doomsday. They really just combined 4 or 5 different comics and really good storylines for comics, and they slapped them all together, and there's too much. And that's really why it's a problem with the movie. It's a problem with pacing. It's a problem with storytelling. It's not focused.
But the thing that I think I can take away from all that is, even though they are trying to combine different stories and kind of play around with the characters, specifically like Batman with his morals and Lex with, his Joker-esque mannerisms, I guess. Just all of the above pretty much. That's probably their take on trying to be different and trying to branch out and play with these characters and see what they can do with them. Because, ultimately, you have the same character without evolution and there's problems. So if the Batman was the same from when did Batman even start?
1939.
Yeah, so if the Batman from 1939 was the exact same as it was now, we wouldn't like Batman as much.
Well, Batman killed people in 1939, so we've got the same Batman now.
We've reached full circle apparently then. But still, it's I feel like it's their take on trying to play with the characters and trying to see where they can push and pull, see what works, what doesn't.
Yeah.
Especially with, I feel like with Lex, I feel like it's worked pretty well because they've made a character that they can be feared now. Because the original Lex Luthor, let's be honest, we weren't really afraid of him. Yeah. Whereas this Lex, it's like, okay, you got some shit up your sleeve. You mean business. Okay.
Yeah, I think you're right to some extent. We're definitely in agreement that it's better than what Rotten Tomatoes says.
It's way better than 30%.
But it's still not great. It's not what we deserve, and it's not what we needed right now either.
Oh God.
we deserved better and we needed better, and it didn't happen. So that's that.
Oh my God.
Natasha has seen a lot of the animated series. I love the animated series of Batman animated series, Superman animated series, Justice League. I think this movie would have been better if they literally just took World's Finest, the episode series from Superman the animated series where Batman meets Superman, and it's Joker and Lex working together versus Batman and Superman. That would have been a better movie for me. But
they don't want to overplay Joker too much.
No, you don't want to overplay Joker too much.
Because he was all in the Dark Knight series, so.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that we have Joker in it, but we have a similar.
Yeah.
We have a similar version, because that's a really good way. The versus was not so much fighting, it was a mental battle. It was Batman knowing who Superman is and Superman knowing who Batman is, and then not agreeing with each other, but not really
but still working together.
Working together because of requirement, not because they wanted to. And then slowly forming a friendship through Justice League, the animated series, and Justice League Unlimited.
Right. And kind of playing off of that with how the movie ended, with how Batman vs. Superman, with how it ended with Wonder Woman and Batman, or I guess, Diana and Bruce, and those respective characters just talking with each other. It makes me curious for kind of how the series is going to continue, because it kind of hints at making the Justice League, and there are actually those moments in there where with Lex's, all of his computer information you see hints of Cyborg and Aquaman, things like that, and Flash, and getting the meta-human, quote-unquote, elements. So it's interesting to see kind of where they're going to take that.
Yeah, I just hope they continue. I hope we get better DC movies and they don't just put everything on the chopping block, because this one didn't do as well as expected. We still have yet to see the weekend opening totals since Saturday that we're recording this.
Right.
We went to see it Thursday, but we'll see what happens. Thanks for stopping by and talking, Natasha. It was good having you.
Absolutely.
This is Doodlecast. Thanks for watching. Here's to hoping Suicide Squad is better. Next time on Doodlecast, the podcast that inspired me and a few animations to honor them. Thanks for watching.